Welcome to another episode of the Feral Housewife. This is primarily a knitting, fiber, and making podcast and vlog. I'm your host, Sydney. I can be found as Sydney Knits on Ravelry, or you can email me at theferalhousewifepodcast@gmail.com. Also, you're welcome to leave comments below, and I am usually pretty good about responding to things. I used to host a podcast around 10 years ago, so if you listened back then and you're listening now, welcome back, and I'm happy to get in the swing of things again. So I'll give you a quick introduction to me. I am a mother of 6 children. I am an artist, maker, and potter, although my degrees are in education. And I'm coming to you from the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont. It is currently 9 degrees here. We were not supposed to get snow yesterday, but we got a lot of snow yesterday. Well, not a lot, a couple inches of snow yesterday. And it was enough that when I ran into town, I had to take the all-wheel drive vehicle, which had just gotten back from the shop, and we almost lost the brakes. I am thankful that it was a manual transmission so I could slow it down, but thankfully we're home safe. So I have lots of knitting and fiber fun to share with you. And so today I'm going to talk about some of my favorite knits. But before I get into that, I will discuss my current works in progress. If you've listened before, you'll notice we're just glossing over FOs because I have none. I have finished nothing. Part of that is because I have a lot of bigger projects going on all at once. What I tend to do, I used to be a monogamous knitter a long time ago. I was a very monogamous knitter, and like the hemlock ring blanket behind me was a monogamous knit, and I would dedicate all of my energy to that one project. I am no longer that kind of knitter. So I would say I am both a product and process knitter. And so I will cast on multiple projects and kind of like flit between them. And some may end up in timeout for a considerable amount of time, and some may be worked on more diligently than others. And it just depends, whatever happens to get my fancy, or sometimes it has to do with the yarn. Like if it's a dark color yarn, I cannot knit that well in the evening time. So I'll put that off for daytime knitting or things like that. So, but at any rate, so I am at the point now in my cast on, cast off that I am casting on. So that's why I don't have any FOs. I have one of my projects that's a work in progress. I don't have up here. I have it downstairs. I went through 3 pairs of socks, hand knit socks this week, and there was, I apologize if you just heard the cat jump down from the shelf. She was sunbathing, and then I guess the sun disappeared, so I heard the ball of the foot of 3 pairs of socks wore through. And I considered, well, do I need to be slip stitching? I've not had this problem, but I've also not worn my socks without shoes for a long period of time, which I've been doing when we're 9, 5, and in the negatives degrees. So I decided to cast on some house slippers, and I'll link that pattern below and try to put up the Ravelry picture of it somewhere here or there or here or what have you. And I cast it on using the free version of the pattern. There's a free pattern and a pay pattern. I believe the sizing, there's some sizing differences. And I was trying to burn through the stash basket up here. And what I selected was scraps of Blue Moon Socks That Rock, which is, it's a superwash with a nylon. And I just wanted something with a really dense fabric. that had some reinforcement so I could wear the heck out of them and I could machine wash them. But my gauge was a little off, so those are going to end up being for my middle daughter, and I'm going to have to cast something on differently for myself. I'm thinking I might have to hold 3 strands together. So if you're hearing the kiddos today, like I said, it's super cold and I didn't want them to play outside without me being there. So sorry about that. Anyhow, so the project here that I'm knitting on while we're speaking is this. It started as a vest for me in my hand spun. This is, let me grab one of the skeins off the shelf. This is a 3-ply merino silk that roving that I purchased in Rhinebeck 12 years ago, 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And then I ended up buying more of the fiber from the supplier to make a pretty considerable amount of yarn. It's not enough for a sweater for me. So I was going to knit a vest, so I had something hand spun of mine to wear pretty regularly. And when I started knitting my daughter's sweater, which I think I've discussed on the podcast before, it's currently in timeout. That is in a larger gauge, and it was really hurting my hands to knit on those size 10s at that density, make that fabric that dense. So I asked her, I said, why don't I convert this? I'll steek it and make this into a cardigan for you. And so she was happy with that. So that's what we're going to do. So I used Elizabeth Zimmerman's formulas in Knitting Without Tears to determine what cast on I would need and increases I would need for the sleeves. So what I'll do is knit the 2 sleeves next, then join the yoke, and then it'll be a round yoke decreasing. I'm going to do color work in the yoke. I am not doing my own color work. I am using a color work chart from a Jennifer Stein gas pattern that I have. So that transitions well into the other work in progress. Let me see if it will come out from this shelf. So that same pattern, which I think is Sea Grove or Sea Glass, maybe, I started here. And this yarn here at the base is Knitted, held doubled. And then everything above that, north of that, is an unspun Norwegian wool that was sent to me as a gift, and I'm marking my increases. Because I put things in timeout or aside for an undetermined amount of time, I find that I have to mark my increases and decreases that way. It just makes it easier, especially on a sleeve, so I can just look from one sleeve to the other rather than referring to notes that may or may not get lost. Oh, a floof came to visit. Hi, Bubby. Hi. You want to say hi? This is our floof, or one of the floofs. Oh, he's not happy with that choice. I think he just wanted loves. Come over here. He's a polydactyl. His name is Dwigget. My daughter read the name Dwight and pronounced it Dwigget. So I thought that would be a great, oh, he just bumped the camera. Okay, we now return from our own fortunate floof accident. How great is that? Anyway, yeah, so my daughter read the name Dwight as Dwigget, and we thought it would be a great, great animal name. Plus, we really liked watching The Office, and it just transitioned. He's a little polydactyl, so he's like super adorable. Anyway, so back to the works in progress. I'm reaching over here. This hot mess here, it's not a hot mess, it just looks like a tangled mess, is going to be Marie Wallen's Brise, is it? Is that the pronunciation? I'm like offending Scottish people and I don't mean to be. So, okay. These are barber cords, by the way, and I love them. I don't know what I did before these things. I would love to know what they were originally for, before they were marketed to knitters. So if you know that, please comment below. That would be super cool to know what that is. Anyhow, so the pattern by Marie Wallin, it's knit in Jamieson and Smith Spindrift, which I did not pay attention to in the pattern when I read it. I just read Jamieson Smith, was like, oh, I got a bunch of Jamieson Smith when Luke BU put everything on sale. So I'll just knit it in the 2-ply. They're almost interchangeable. The Spindrift, I think, is a little thicker. I think it's going to work out fine. I would hate to tell you how many times I've knit this, though, since I cast on. So the pattern is written to be knit from the bottom up. Although for a round yoke sweater, a bottom up is my favorite way to do a round yoke, it is not my favorite way for determining the lengths and of the body or the sleeve. And so I cast on an insane number of stitches. I had gauge and I cast on for the largest size. And as I'm knitting it, I'm like, this thing looks flippin' massive. Now, basically, if you're not familiar with Jamieson Smith 2-ply, it's basically a fingering weight yarn. So as a larger ample size person, I am knitting a lot of stitches in sock yarn. That's a lot. So I started doing one rib, worked about 2 inches of the stockinette and was like, put it on 2 needles. And I had so much positive ease in this sweater base. And I measured one of my favorite sweaters, pullovers, to the schematic. So I don't know, I probably messed up. So I thought, well, with the way my gauge like looked like it was on but is off, I want to cast on the size smaller, but I don't want to knit from the bottom up. So what I did, hold on one second, let me see with what's going on with the 3-year-old. Okay, well, she's fine. Downside is I have more editing. Anyway, so what I decided to do, I read a few people's pattern notes. A few other people had an issue with the sizing on the garment as well. So what I did is I did a cow yak cast on and in a waist yarn and knit, cast on and knit a couple rows, and then started in the main color of, so this is down here at the base, is this here is waist yarn. And then I started with the main color of the sweater and then switched to the larger needles that Marie Wallin recommended, that you go up a size for the color work, and then started the color work. Now I'm going to provisionally cast on for each sleeve and do the color work chart there, and then join and then do the decreasing up to the yoke. And I may put some short rows in the back of that yoke. It's not in the pattern to my knowledge, but I think I read in a few other Ravelers notes that they recommended it. And then I will pick up and knit down. This way I can get the length I want. I get all the fun color work in the beginning, which I like, but also in a round yoke sweater, when you're working from the top down, you're usually doing a pretty like solid set of increasing, like pretty like intense. And if you're picking up the bar from the stitch below for make one right or make one left, what it's going to ultimately do is it puts a lot of tension on that row below it, and it can kind of make a like a, what would be a special word? What would be a word and not a sound for that? Like a squeezing it in, and it can get a little tight to do that. So rather than do that, if I knit it from the bottom up for that round yoke, then I'm decreasing, which should be better. So we'll see. So part of me is not sure how I feel about the colors. Like I said, these were like on sale and I thought, let's do a bright spring color, but it looks like an Easter egg to me, which is kind of funny. These two colors here remind me of Miami Vice. That's all I could think of. And then like, or like the Golden Girls sofa. So I don't know. It's not my typical colors. Maybe this pink and this purple would be colors that I would be drawn to, but all together, but I think it's just going to be pretty. I may turn it into a cardigan. We'll see. But you know, all of this requires that I provisionally cast on those sleeves and that I finish the garment before like I get all fancy and all of that nonsense. So how am I going to provisionally cast on the sleeves? I wish I had bought the barber cord before I provisionally cast on this, because then I would have cast on over that and then had that barber cord and just pulled the needles through. So I may cast on using 2 circular needles and just leave those live stitches on the bottom with that other needle. We'll see. We'll see how fancy I feel like getting. You know, a lot of things can happen. I could forget I said that and I could not have the other needle and feel like casting on. Who knows? So that's a work in progress. In general, if I ever talk about works in progress, there is usually a vanilla sock or 4 in the progress somewhere. So the Hermione Everyday Sock is still going. It lives in one of the cars until I pull it out from there. A lot of times what will happen is the first sock will live in the car. When the first sock is done, then the second sock moves into the house so that they can be done. It's just the transition of sockdom in the house. So let's move on. And then I cast on a little sweater for my youngest child, who is 3. This is the size 4 size. This is the pattern Cricket from Green Mountain Spinnery, which is here in Vermont. It is supposed to have a zipper here, and I am not afraid to do a zipper at all. And I could probably finish this today to just do this little sleeve, but I've been distracted by all this other knitting and some spinning, so that's why this isn't done. This is knit with Plymouth yarn, Plymouth tweed, the 100% wool. It is leftover yarn from one of my best friends' Central Park hoodie. Do you remember that sweater if you've been knitting a long time? Do you remember how popular Central Park hoodie is? Central Park hoodie was one of the first sweaters I knit for myself. And I knit it with Lion Brand, something. I don't remember. It was orange because that was the only one I could, the only colorway I could get a full sweater's worth of. It was before I got a little yarn snobby. Little, not a lot. Well, a little. Anyhow, so she had given me these extra balls of yarn. And I've been wanting to do something with them. So I finally, my youngest daughter is her godchild. So I thought, how suiting would this be? And I will save these extra balls of yarn because I can just pull out this cuff and add some length if I need to next year. I considered knitting the cuff longer and folding it back and like hemming it almost, but I decided against that for a few reasons. I didn't want that like bulk there for her to have to deal with, and sometimes when I do like a hem like that, I do a purl row, and so even if I pulled back, there would be the cuff is garter, so there would be this weird line of delineation. So I figured I'll just do that. I have done that where I've pulled back cuffs or pulled back the bottom of a sweater and just added length to it for my kids, depending. But at any rate, I may do little I-cord with a toggle button on the neckline instead of a zipper. I don't have a little zipper in my knitting stash, in my sewing stash. And I almost don't want to mix the natural wool with like the syntheticness of a zipper. I don't know. But I loved the sample that they had at Rhinebeck. So who knows? And yes, I do find it absolutely absurd that I went all the way to Rhinebeck to see a pattern that I could see in the state I'm in currently. So, but they're a bit of a drive from me. I have been there. It's delightful. Next time I go, I'll bring the camera. So, and then finally, the last work in progress. I have never done this technique before, right? It's probably just me that has never brioched. So the Woolly Thistle, which is a yarn store in Lebanon, New Hampshire, but they're an online yarn shop, had a colorwork cowl. I'm doing a cowl, but it's a cowl, K-A-L, knit along. And I was wavering. I was going to do the Millet Mitten by Isolde Teague. I have the yarn that I bought at Rhinebeck specifically for that pattern. I don't know why I didn't cast it on. It could be I didn't feel like winding 3 separate balls of yarn. I don't know. And it could also be that I was ready to learn something new. So I cast on a brioche cowl. So I've never done brioche. This is brioche in the round, 2-color brioche. There are a few fantastic tutorials online that I will try to link below. Andrea Mowry is the one that I had the most takeaway from. So, and Stephen West had a really great one as well. So, the purple in this is my hand spun. It is a merino silk and it was dyed by Blue Moon Fiber. And the turquoise is leftovers from the forager sweater that I knit for my eldest child. I put these on my Haya needle interchangeables, which I haven't knit with these needles in a while. It's a more blunt of a tip than the Chigu. The cord is not as like luxurious, I don't know, as the Chigu, but I'm enjoying it now. It could have just been that I haven't knit in the set so long, so the cord was kind of spiraled up on itself. Anyhow, it's a method of slipping and knitting and slipping and purling. So one row is actually worked twice because you're working every other stitch, so to speak. And it creates this beautiful squishiness. It's really luxurious. So, I'm actually really enjoying this. I cast this on yesterday, so I'm about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches into it. It's supposed to be a 6-inch cowl-ish. And it was a pay pattern, but I'll link the pattern below. And I apologize that I don't actually remember which one it was. So those are my works in progress. Now let's get to some of my favorite knits. So I'll stand up in a minute. Okay, so the kids had a need and that need has been filled, and we can go on to some of the favorite knits. So the first one is the one I wear most frequently. It is the Cinnamon Girl cardigan, Amy Christophers, I believe. I knit this 8 years ago-ish, somewhere around there. I actually don't know if my Ravelry has dates. There was a period of time where I was a really prolific knitter, and my Ravelry did not keep up with what I was doing. I am semi-current now, so if I ever mention something and it's not in the show notes, it's usually on my Ravelry project page. It's a cable pattern This is knit in Blue Moon Targhee, and this is the one I wear most frequently. My downside about the yarn is it's pilling somewhat now, but like I said, I knit it 8 years ago. I have one of those sweater stones, which I gave this an aggressive stoning the other day, and it just I think I'm gonna have to get one of those like electric ones. I was trying to avoid that. I wanted to be like a little more natural with it, but anyhow, this is my hands down favorite knit currently. Next, as far as wearability, is the Brune hat by Melody Hoffman. This is also Blue Moon Targhee, but I held it stranded with, I don't have any more of the ball. Well, I do have more of the ball. I just don't know where it is, of a alpaca. Alpaca? Yes, alpaca. I didn't want mohair. I had knit the one of them with a strand of Knit Picks, their cashmere blend, and their silk mohair for my husband. I knit 2 of those actually, and it was like too hot for my head, so I stopped that. So this next, so these are the 2 things that I've knit that I wear the most frequently day to day. Like if I'm gonna go run out to the car or get the mail, I'm usually putting this cardigan on and this hat and a scarf or wrap or shawl. So my next favorite thing that I have knit is actually something I knit for my eldest child when she was younger. And we had a little color bleeding with it, but it is the Loki sweater. I don't know if this pattern is available anymore. When I went to re-knit it, I actually couldn't find the pattern. And I actually used to print patterns and put them in a binder. And this was the time period that I did that. So this was a top down yoke. It was steeked. I did this in Brioche Vintage, which is a superwash wool. I'm like closing my eyes because then I can see it. Superwash wool with an acrylic of some form. So I use a method when I have slippery yarn, and I have a video that I posted below. And when I do a different type of steek, again, I will make a new video. So that type of steek that I use on the machine is with a machine sewn stitch is for something that either is slippery, like when I did the steek on my throwback, that was Madeline Tosh, which is superwash merino, so it's more slippery. Or I've done that steek on the Brioche Vintage, which has a superwash and acrylic. I've done that steek also on Spud and Chloe sweater, which is a cotton and wool blend. So it gave me the opportunity to steek without the super sticky wool, which was important for me when knitting garments for my very rambunctious children, or for myself when we were in Florida more regularly and I didn't want a full wool sweater. So one of the things that I like to do on the inside of my steek is hand stitch a grosgrain ribbon. So this side is the button band, and you can see my, so I'm covering my steek little phrase, and I'm reinforcing this button band, which is a nice way. And I want to say this button band is an applied I-cord, which if I did that, because if this pattern, if I'm not mistaken, was knit as a pullover, and I decided to do that, kudos to me, because it looks lovely and it's held up this long. And then the other thing that I do, which is not a good way to show it now, is on the side that has the buttons. This is the broken button. On that, with the grosgrain ribbon, I back it with a backing button. So I actually brought this into the yarn room, one, to show everyone one of my favorite knits, but also because I need to put new buttons on this. These were buttons that, this one broke. Let's see if we can get it to focus. These were pebbles, beach pebbles that were made into buttons. And I got them off of Etsy years ago, and they were really a nice touch for the sweater. However, as this has gone through 4 children since then, we have broken some buttons. Broken all the buttons, actually. We have broken all the buttons. So I will sew new buttons onto this and it will go to the next child. But I think it's held up pretty well. And the other piece I knit in the Brioche vintage for the kids has held up pretty well too. Anyhow, so let's move on. So another steek that made my favorites is the Andrea Mowbray throwback, and this is in Madeline Tosh. So I love the colors, absolutely love the colors. It was it a kit or did I put it together? Do not remember. Things that I am not thrilled with has to do with the yarn and not the yarn itself. The yarn itself is great. My choice of size I cast on, weight of the yarn, pulling it down has created a few problems for me. One, the neckline totally swoops down now. This is the cardigan, but it is not her cardigan pattern for throwback. When throwback came out as a pullover, I just made it as a cardigan, and all I did is add I won't go into all that because maybe you're not here for all that, but that's in my show notes, or not show notes, Ravelry page. So there's a few things. I did not do my usual grosgrain on those button to reinforce it. I don't have another example. Sometimes I take a super skinny grosgrain and go down either side of the button band on the inside. And I think I was just lazy, or I didn't find a matching grosgrain ribbon. Who knows? There could be 100 reasons why Sydney didn't do what she was supposed to do. We won't know. Anyhow, but it is warm. It is durable. The yarn, as far as pilling, it's actually been pretty righteous as far as that goes. So I'm happy with it, and I wear it a lot. I think I need to put, I'll either decide, I need to either put new buttons on it so that the buttons hold a little better because the stretching that's occurring with the superwash on, or I can stabilize the button band with grosgrain. We'll see. One of the two will happen, or nothing, and I'll just keep wearing it that way and then think about it every time I put it on. So one of my favorites is actually, or two of my favorites are actually new knits that I've talked about on the show episodes before. So this is the high-low pullover tidal yarn. I blocked it, and I am going to put some video in of the blocking process after this. So if you're interested, and I'll link below. I used to do companion videos to my podcast, my audio podcast years ago. So you'll see a much younger me discussing blocking, and that'll link you there. So at any rate, this is the first time you've seen this blocked, and man, this yarn bloomed, eh? It is Tidal Yarns. It is spun at Green Mountain Spinnery. It bloomed and softened. Beautiful. beautifully. I loved this sweater before, and I was a little concerned that that seed stitch hem was gonna bloop up again even after blocking, but it has no interest in doing that. It is lightweight, it is warm. Those woolen spun yarns, man, they don't mess around. So that is a super favorite of mine. And then my last favorite to talk about is Wintersole, and this is local yarn. It is Junction Fiber Mill, their practice yarn. It is wool, woolly wool, wool, wool. This is Jennifer Steingrass. Steingass, sorry, I added a consonant. That happens frequently in my mind. Top. This is the same construction that I discussed that I'm doing for the brise. So it cast on provisionally, work the yoke up. The difference would be the brise has patterning down here. This is exceptionally warm. It blocked beautifully, in my opinion. The modification that I have made to the pattern had to do with me running out of this light gray, almost out of it. I did not have enough to do the ribbing on the base of that sleeve. So what I did is I weighed the gray yarn I had, and I knit a little bit longer in just the chocolate color. Then I did the color work, and then I did an applied I-cord here at the end of the sleeve, weighed what I had left to make sure I would have enough to do it that way. And then did the same on the other side. Now, if I didn't have enough to do it that way, I would have then probably tried to do something with the chocolate brown or omit the color work on this part. I didn't know what my full plan was going to be if I didn't have enough. I was just kind of hoping that I did. So, and that concludes my favorite knits. If any of those include your favorite patterns that you've knit, or finished objects, I guess, because sometimes I enjoy the pattern, but I don't necessarily love the finished object to that degree. And ironically, none of my shawls made it in here, even though I wear them all the time, because I enjoy wearing them, but they're not like my favorites. My sweaters really tend to be my favorites. So if any of those are your favorites, comment below. And now I'll talk a little bit about spinning. Before I do, I really enjoy podcasting, and I would hope you would consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video. It helps get the video out there. Also, if you know of a way to share the video, it's really encouraging to see the views and increase subscribers. So on to spinning. So I have been spinning on my matchless, which is almost always what I spin on. I seldom spin on the Louette. I don't know. And I spin in double drive, typically. So I just plied these up. I have not given them a soak and blocked them out yet. So let me see. It is a very rustic 3-ply, I would say. This is a fleece that I had processed into a roving years ago. It is a merino, a baby merino. And this used to be from a farm that would send you like their sheep catalog, and you'd be in order. So like, let's say they sent it to 20 people, you were number 5 on the list. So you would get it and then like have the address of the person you were sending it to next. And you'd write in, and they'd have all these little samples, fleece sample locks. And you'd be like, I want, you know, fleece number 12 or whatever. And then you'd package up that whole thing, that little catalog, and send it to the next person on the list, and so on. I don't even know if they still do that. It was it was great when you were like high up on the list, but like when you were like, of the 20 people that there were 20 fleeces, like you had like one fleece you could choose from. So I think there was a year I didn't choose a fleece, like the first year. And then the next year I got to be higher up on the list because I was a returning person or whatever. It was a good option at that time because I wasn't making it to fiber festivals or, and there weren't a lot of sheep farms in Southern Florida. So I couldn't like go to a local farm or anything like that. So it was a good option. I'm not sure what I'm going to do here. I bought those 2 fleeces in Rhinebeck this year that I should be getting back this coming week. So we'll see. So anyhow, so it's woolen spun, just from the roving, nothing fancy schmancy there. I was trying to be just really organic with the singles. A great DVD or download from Interweave is Popular Wheel Mechanics and Anything by Judith Mackenzie McEwen, I believe it is. Her style, her methodology, all of that has taught me so much in the last decade or plus that I've been spinning. So my default yarn in a single is pretty fine. So I tend to not overthink my single. I try to make my wheel do what it needs to change the single, but I cannot change my draft that drastically or change my treadling speed consistently. I will always default back to that draft and that foot speed. So I do things to alter the wheel, whether it be how I'm putting it on the flyer, the take up on the mother of all, because I'm spinning in double drive, so I'm not increasing that tension like on a Scotch tension. And I was actually thinking about doing some Scotch tension work, but then I'm in the middle of this. So this worked out to be 450 yards thus far. I have 2 half full bobbins, 1 empty bobbin currently. I'm going to go spin those back up to singles. I kind of wanted this to be the Billy pullover, right? So we're talking, now we're going to transition a little into like knitting plans. But I'm sitting with you, talking to you in a brown cabled sweater. So do I need another brown cabled sweater? The reason I 3-plied is I like the nice round bounciness, and this will bloom out really pretty. So I don't know. I have some Cormo next to me in pin draft roving that could also be the Billy, but I had spun this with the Billy in mind, but then I was having second guesses because I already have this. So I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what that's going to become. So yarn plans. Are you a planner? And do you feel like compelled to like keep your plan? I find that sometimes if I'm planning on casting on or finishing or what have you, something, and then I fail to do so, I get like hung up on it like it's an assignment, and it takes a little bit of mental process for me to like work my way out of that. So a few things that I have planned. Let me, pardon my reach. The yarn over yarn from Green Mountain Spinnery that I was having trouble knitting to the density, and I was going to actually run out of the yarn if I continued that sweater. I'm thinking I will cast on a cricket, even though the pattern doesn't go to my middle daughter's size. I feel like because this yarn is thicker than the called for yarn, that just knitting the largest size and larger needles with this yarn will get me a size that will fit her. And if it doesn't, then it'll fit my youngest daughter at some point, right? So I may do that, because when I buy yarn for a specific project and I fail to do that project, that stash becomes a little burdensome to me. And it's just a mind game that my mind plays with it. There is stash that I have, and I've got like a mohair fluff, sorry. There's stash that I have. Oh look, there's the recipient of the sweater screaming now. Oh, she is upset. There's stash that I have that I've bought for stash purposes that does not bother me. I have no idea what I'm going to make with it yet, but I'm going to make something, and maybe not, but I most likely will make something. That doesn't stress me. What stresses me is yarn that I bought something with a specific project in mind and I don't get to the project or don't finish it. That I find burdensome. So I find if I clear those out of my queue, I'm better. And then I was just talking at my LYS with a group about these leftover pieces, like this from my vodka gimlet, or this from my mittens. Like, how did I have a whole skein left over from mittens? So those like extras usually stress me out. Now the extras from my daughter's sleeves for that Plymouth, for that cricket, that's not gonna stress me out, because I'm gonna know that's for adding on to the sleeve. But am I gonna be like, am I the only person that's like, I have this extra ball? And somebody was like, oh, but it's a hat. I have 6 kids and I still don't know that I need this many hats. Yes, I know I can knit them for charity. I'm not being ridiculous. Well, I am being a little ridiculous. But at any rate, so that's where we are. And then, so like, what else do I like really, really, really want to knit? There is the night shift night shift shawl, and Andrea Mowbray. I have this Verde in these 4 beautiful colors here. 1, 2, 3, 4. The only thing I am concerned about with a shawl with this is a pretty woolly wool. I used to think I was a wool wuss, like I couldn't handle a toothy wool. It was just that it was like really flippin' hot where I was, so like you didn't want anything warm. I don't know that I would gravitate towards this. Like if this were hanging up with my current shawls and scarves that I've knit, I wouldn't be like, oh, let me rub this one by my neck. I love the colors though, and I love the yarn. I just don't know that I love it here, like right here. Although the answer may be in a swatch, because that title softened up considerably. So the last thing I have to show is an acquisition, and this is, well, the package fell. This is Lichen and Lace. This is their sock club. It is superwash. Is it superwash? Yes, it is 80-20. So it's superwash merino, 20% nylon. I know I have blown 3 holes in socks this week. 3, like I said. So yeah. So I am so hesitant to go totally natural with the socks, because I am now behind in number of hand knit socks I have. But if you've not knit with the Lichen and Lace, it feels beautiful. And Fiber Tales has that, I think it's the Grow Sock, and I think this would be absolutely stunning. This colorway is Sumac. It is beautiful. So it's going to go over there, and I will think about it. I have not cast it on because I think you saw that I have enough cast-ons, and I should probably like make this a reward. Like if I finish blah, 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 I will get that. So, all right. I'm sure I've forgotten a million things that I will remember after we do this. I'm going to go ahead and put the blocking and what have you, and I'll link the old blocking video below. And I appreciate your likes, shares, comments, and your time. So thank you, be safe, and take care. So this little add-on about blocking, in the description box below, I have linked some older videos that I shot as companion videos for my podcast years ago, actually over a decade ago. So you'll see a much younger version of me blocking in some of the preferred techniques I had then. This technique that I was doing today is new to me, and that was using the spin cycle in the washing machine. I have another idea for involving the washing machine in this. So this is our old farmhouse sink. Like I said, we're in a 1781 Vermont countryside farmhouse. So this cast iron sink is pretty cold. So I have pretty hot water going. One of my favorite wool washes is the Eucalyptus. It doesn't require me to rinse it out. Smells very lovely. I don't like very perfumey fragrances. I use soak from time to time, and that's another one that you don't have to rinse out. I've heard people say you can use shampoos and things like that. I don't have experience with that. This has been what I've used. I bought actually a gallon of it many years ago, and I'm still working from that. So I'm putting the Venturesol sweater in here to block. This is the first, this is the wet blocking for it. Kind of squished it down in there, made sure the volume of water was significant enough that the garment could kind of free float around. And the directions on the bottle say a minimum of 15 minutes. I want to say I left this one here for 20. So these wools in this are a non-superwashed wool from Junction Fiber Company. And so I'm excited to see how they bloom out. And you actually got to see that in this episode because it is one of my favorite knits. I also blocked the Tidal yarn piece, the high-low pullover from Tidal Yarns. But I made sure to drain out the water and add new water and new eucalyptus to the sink. So I make sure I scour out my sink really well before I do this. I used to have dedicated buckets for soaking my wool garments. I want to say I got them from Soak years ago, but I don't use them anymore that way. I just use the big farmhouse sink for it. It seems to work fine. If you do get to look at the older videos, make sure to comment and let me know what you think. Here's me trying to read the bottle without my reading glasses, holding it very far away. And just trying to make a decision on when to take it out of the water. Not that I was in a rush, but I wanted to make sure. I couldn't remember whether it was 15 or 20 minutes was the recommended time. I like how I looked at it and then totally forgot about it and left it in there longer. The reason I knew how long it was is because the camera was recording, so it had a really good idea. So one of the things that I like to do is when I drain, I'm gently pressing the garment against the wall of the sink to get as much water as I can out of it without doing too much lifting while the garment is super heavy with water in it, so it's not distorting stitches and things. That's pretty important because when the piece gets really wet and it gets very heavy, you can have some growth in some row length and direction that you don't intend to. I wasn't going to block this out to size or anything. I was just blocking for the yarn bloom, and the hem was flipping a little on this piece also. So I make sure that when I squish it down, that I am not pulling or distorting, and I'm not wringing. I'm just kind of pressing it out. And then I take it up and gather it and take it to the washing machine. Then this time I went ahead and added the Tidal Comfort Cardi, the high-low one, pullover, sorry, in there, and followed the same procedure that I did the first time, kind of zhuzhed it around, not agitating it, just kind of making sure it's soaked. Notice a little giggly 3-year-old, pretty amused with the fact that there's a camera. So I'm surprised she's not trying to splash in the sink though, because that's what she normally would do. And then I'm putting it into my washing machine and hitting spin only. So there's no water in the washing machine. It's just the wet wool garment, and I'm allowing the washing machine to spin it out. Now, the method that I used in the videos that I linked when I was wet blocking is to roll it up in a towel and stand on it. And I've heard many other knitters talk about that. But this one, I love the washing machine. So let me know what you think.